Staff Sergeant Ellie Ward, 34 years old, just under 5'4". Compact frame, dark hair pulled back into a regulation bun so tight it looked carved into place. Sharp hazel eyes that rarely looked anyone in the face. Her voice was soft, so soft it often didn't carry across a room. She was the kind of soldier who could disappear into a room, even when standing right in the center of it. Not because she was forgettable, far from it, but because she made herself invisible, deliberately. She wasn't the kind of person who drew attention. She didn't need it, didn't want it. Ellie Ward was a logistics specialist in the United States Air Force. Her battlefield? The inside of a C-130 Hercules aircraft. The cargo hold. Her weapon? A meticulous sense of order. Her mission? Ensuring that hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of supplies, ranging from medical kits to food rations to advanced weapon systems, were loaded, balanced, and secured with mathematical precision. To most, she was just the cargo girl, the one who tied things down, the one who scribbled in her old notebook, while everyone else used military-issue tablets, the one who never spoke up during briefings unless directly addressed, the one who always sat alone. Her teammates called her the logistics goddess, a nickname that started as a joke but stuck. The way they said it carried a layer of sarcasm, like she was taking her job too seriously, like she thought she was more important than she was. But none of them denied one thing. When Ellie Ward was in charge of the cargo, flights were smoother, less turbulence, fewer damaged goods, safer landings. No one ever really thanked her for that. Her work was in the shadows, underappreciated, unseen, but she didn't mind. Ellie had her rituals, her habits. She always checked the tie-downs 3 times, always weighed the cargo herself, even when it came with paperwork. Always balanced the load according to her own calculations, not just the automated systems. She documented every trip in her worn, brown leather notebook, pages filled with dense handwriting, sketches, mathematical formulas, and observations. She didn't do this because she had to. She did it because she knew how fast things could go wrong at 30,000 feet. And she knew that if something did go wrong, if the weight wasn't right, if the straps failed, if the supplies shifted, people would die, so she made sure they didn't. Ellie's presence on base was quiet, almost ghost-like. She didn't hang around the mess hall after missions, didn't join the others at the bar. She ate her meals quickly in the far corner of the room, facing the wall. She wasn't on duty. She was reading old military manuals or writing in her notebook. She never volunteered personal stories, never talked about her past. Some assumed she was shy. Others thought she was antisocial. A few whispered that she had something to hide. What she had was experience. More than most would ever guess. On her right hip, she carried a faded canvas bag. Always. No one knew what was in it. Most assumed it was personal. Maybe letters, maybe a lucky charm. A young pilot once teased her about it during pre-flight checks. "What's in the bag, Sergeant? Old sandwiches? Or are you planning to smother us with your notebook if we crash?" Ellie didn't flinch. She looked down at her checklist. "Just in case I need to do something nobody else can when it matters." They laughed. She didn't. Her commanding officers appreciated her reliability, but rarely included her in tactical discussions. Her detailed notes on weight optimization were dismissed as overkill. Her recommendations for better loading sequences were ignored. She never pushed, never argued, never demanded recognition. She just kept everything running. Because while the others dreamed of glory, Ellie Ward was obsessed with one thing: making sure everyone came home alive. Her knowledge of aircraft interiors was encyclopedic. She knew every bolt, every rivet, every possible vibration pattern. She had memorized the tensile strength of every strap and net. She understood airflow dynamics, load shift equations, and emergency decompression protocols better than the pilots. She had to, because no one else cared. And if she didn't, who would? She didn't mind the silence. She preferred it. In silence, she could think. She could calculate. She could prepare. Because Ellie Ward didn't believe in luck. She believed in preparation. Her flight logs were immaculate. Her reports were thorough. Her mistakes? Practically non-existent. Still, no one really knew her. They didn't know about the old M1911 pistol inside that faded canvas bag, an antique by military standards, but lovingly maintained. It had a customized grip, short-range optics, and a trigger mechanism smoother than silk. Few even noticed she carried it. No one asked why. She wasn't technically supposed to have it. She had earned it. Ellie had been on dozens of missions, most of them uneventful, routine, flying food and medical supplies to forward bases, delivering ammo to hot zones just before they turned red, always in the background, always in support. But even routine missions had risks. Like the one scheduled for that Tuesday morning, the manifest was intense. Critical medical supplies, 17 personnel, ammunition crates, communication gear, emergency rations. Everything packed into a C-130. Hercules, the workhorse of the fleet, over 2,000 successful combat missions. Logged, battle-tested, reliable. Ellie checked everything, twice. The weight distribution was tight, but manageable. The straps were doubled, the tie-downs rechecked. The pallets locked. The logbook updated, handed in her report. No one read it. She boarded the plane. No one noticed. They were too busy talking about the new base near the border, about how tensions had flared in the past week, about the possible skirmishes ahead. Ellie listened, but said nothing. They took off at 600, cruising, altitude 28,000 feet. She was in the cargo hold, sitting quietly beside her equipment, reviewing her notes, eyes scanning every net, every strap, every seam. Then, the radar pinged. An unidentified UAV armed, closing fast from the northwest quadrant. In the cockpit, the radar operator's voice cracked. Unidentified aerial vehicle. It's armed. Gaining fast, coming in hot. The pilot leaned forward. What the hell? Then the cabin pressure alarm blared. The primary pilot slumped sideways. Oxygen deprivation. Medical emergency. Chaos erupted. The co-pilot froze, training kicking in but overwhelmed. Not enough experience. No idea how to deal with a UAV attack mid-air. The automated countermeasure system jammed. They were vulnerable. The enemy UAV locked on. Missile bays opened, targeting system active. Everyone was too busy panicking. Ellie stood up. Calm. Focused. She moved toward the cockpit. A senior crew chief intercepted her. This isn't your business, Sergeant. Get back to cargo. She said nothing, just nodded. Turned away. Returned to the cargo hold. Unzipped the faded canvas bag. Inside, the old M1911 pistol. Modified, maintained, familiar, engraved into the grip. Quick endings belong to those with cold minds and steady hands. She crouched behind the cargo netting, secured her harness, opened the emergency hatch. Manual override. Against protocol. The wind howled. Temperature dropped 30 degrees. The plane shook. Alarm screamed. Ellie breathed. In, out, in. The UAV was 200 meters away. Getting closer. She aligned her sights. No panic, no hesitation. She had trained for this. She had prepared. She was ready. The others didn't know who she was, but they were about to find out. The atmosphere inside the C-130 Hercules changed in a heartbeat. From calm routine to chaos. Ellie Ward, still crouched near the cargo, could feel the shift in air pressure before the sirens even started. The red strobe lights inside the aircraft began to pulse. Warning tones blared through the intercom. The entire aircraft shook, not from turbulence, but from something outside closing in fast. Unidentified UAV, armed, 200 meters and closing. In the cockpit, the radar operator's voice cracked, heavy with panic. Hostile drone approaching from the northwest, closing fast. We're being targeted! Then the pilot collapsed. One moment he was in control, the next, slumped over the controls, unconscious. A malfunction in the cabin pressure system triggered a medical emergency. Ellie knew enough about oxygen deprivation to understand what had just happened. If they didn't stabilize him quickly, he wouldn't wake up. The co-pilot froze. He wasn't ready for this. He fumbled with the comms, trying to reach base command. The automated defense system jammed mid-initialization. The aircraft, loaded with critical supplies and 17 lives, was now flying blind. No flares, no countermeasures, no evasive maneuvers, nothing. The enemy UAV was designed for one purpose, strike. And it had just found a defenseless target. Ellie stood. Her instincts, once buried beneath layers of protocol and silence, surged to the surface. She started toward the cockpit. She didn't run. She didn't shout. But she moved fast. A crew chief, a man who outranked her, stepped into her path. Sergeant Ward, get back to cargo. This isn't your responsibility. She looked him in the eye. Not with anger, not with defiance, but with complete clarity. She nodded, calmly, respectfully. She turned and walked back into the cargo hold. But her mission had changed. In the back of the aircraft, she knelt and unzipped the faded canvas bag on her hip. Inside was the old M1911 pistol, a relic by today's military standards, but maintained with reverence. Custom grip tape, short-range optics, a polished trigger, a weapon she hadn't needed in years, until now. Etched into the grip, quick endings belonged to those with cold minds and steady hands. She holstered it temporarily, then secured a harness to a reinforced ring embedded in the cargo bay floor. She tightened it hard against her waist. Every movement was deliberate, mechanical, instinctual. Then she unlocked the emergency side hatch. A rush of frozen wind screamed through the aircraft like a banshee. Pressure alarms flared. The cabin temperature plummeted instantly. Loose objects shot across the hold. The plane bucked against the sudden drag. Ellie didn't blink. She lowered herself into a crouch, bracing against the netting. She closed one eye, breathing deeply, slowing her pulse. She steadied the pistol, resting it against a bulkhead to absorb the vibration of the aircraft. Outside, the UAV was visible now, metallic gray, low profile, a sleek flying predator, 200 meters. She aimed. The UAV hadn't noticed her. It was focused on the cockpit, the pilot, the co-pilot, the systems it expected to be the only threats. No one ever launched a counterattack from the cargo hold. She squeezed the trigger. The first shot rang out like a thunderclap lost in the wind. The round hit the UAV's wing. A glancing blow. Sparks flared. A piece of composite plating shattered. The drone jolted midair but kept coming. Ellie adjusted. She calculated angles, factoring in altitude, velocity, wind shear. Her brain, trained long ago for combat marksmanship, came alive. Old instincts roared back to life. She fired again. This time the round struck the drone's tail stabilizer. It wobbled, badly, but still didn't fall. The drone continued its approach, now visibly damaged but not disabled. Inside the aircraft, chaos continued. Someone shouted over the intercom, "Who the hell is firing?" The crew chief ran toward the rear, saw the open hatch, and froze. There she was, Ellie Ward, harnessed to the floor, kneeling with her pistol steady against the wind, eyes locked on the incoming death machine. The UAV dropped altitude suddenly, adjusting for its missile launch. A targeting laser flickered across the nose of the C-130. They had maybe 20 seconds. Ellie didn't move. Her hands were still. Her breathing was slow. She waited. She fired a third time. Direct hit. The round tore into the UAV's sensor array, blinding its navigation. The drone wobbled hard. Its targeting system struggled to recalibrate, but it was still functional. 10 seconds. The drone reoriented. Missile bays opened. Ellie readjusted. No fear, no tremble. Just focus. She breathed. In, out, hold, fire. The fourth shot was perfect. The bullet penetrated the drone's central processor, the brain. A flash of light burst through the drone's undercarriage. Its engine sputtered, spiraled, then died completely. The UAV spun into a death spiral. Everyone inside the C-130 watched as the enemy aircraft twisted through the sky, spiraling down toward the mountains below. It exploded on impact. No secondary blast. No survivors. Silence. Inside the aircraft, nobody spoke. Ellie calmly reached up and shut the emergency hatch. The cabin hissed as it resealed. Pressurization systems kicked back in. The temperature normalized. Blood dripped down her left arm, shrapnel from the wind or the pressure shift. She tore a section of cloth from her undershirt and tied it tightly. She sat back down. A senior officer rushed into the cargo bay. "Who engaged the threat? Who's operating weapons back here?" No one answered. Ellie stood up quietly. The M1911 was already back in the canvas bag. The officer stared at her. "You?" She nodded. He looked at the blood, then at the bag, then at her face. He didn't know what to say. But the look in his eyes said everything. They all understood now. This wasn't just the quiet logistics sergeant. This was someone else entirely. The C-130 landed at the forward base with an almost eerie silence. Inside the aircraft, 17 passengers disembarked without speaking much. The usual chatter that followed a successful flight was absent. Everyone seemed to glance toward the cargo hold before stepping off the ramp, where Ellie Ward had returned to her usual position, clipboard in hand, checking the condition of the straps and cargo containers as though nothing extraordinary had occurred. No medals were handed out that day. No commanding officer gave a rousing speech. But the quiet was different now. It wasn't dismissive silence. It was respect. Word spread fast through unofficial channels. It always did. The incident was immediately classified. No formal reports were allowed to mention Ellie's name or the fact that a single pistol had downed an enemy UAV mid-flight. But stories trickled through all the same. Someone had acted. Someone with precision. Someone who shouldn't have been able to do what they did. Someone who had... Ellie Ward became a ghost story told between hangars and behind mess hall walls. "Did you hear what happened on the supply flight last week? They say a logistics sergeant dropped a drone with an old sidearm." No, she wasn't just any sergeant. She was Special Forces once. Or something like that. Eventually, truth began to rise from the rumor. Unofficial background checks were made. Whispered conversations happened between senior brass. Then, finally, someone pulled up her restricted file. She wasn't just a staff sergeant. She hadn't always been logistics. She had been Master Sergeant Ellie Ward, once assigned to Special Operations, specifically to Ghost 7, an elite counter-sniper and intelligence recovery unit that operated far outside traditional warfare. Ghost 7 had only a handful of members, each trained for deadly accuracy, solo operations, and surgical mission execution. Ellie had completed 3 full tours in active combat zones. Her confirmed kill count was over 40. She had neutralized high-value targets across 3 continents, infiltrated warlord compounds, and survived missions with failure rates over 90%. The M1911 she carried? Not just a keepsake. It had been issued to her after her final mission with Ghost 7, a mission she never spoke of. Engraved into the grip was the quote, "Quick endings belong to those with cold minds and steady hands." That inscription was given only to Ghost 7's top operators. There were fewer than 5 pistols with that engraving in active circulation. 2 years ago, she had voluntarily requested transfer. At first, her commanding officer refused. "You're the best shooter we've ever seen, Ward. This unit needs you." "I'm tired, sir," she'd replied. "I want to serve in a way that keeps people alive, not the other way around." When the paperwork was finally processed, she vanished from the front lines without ceremony. She requested no farewell party, no commendation. She simply reported to her new base as a logistician. Nobody there knew who she was, and she wanted it that way. She wasn't hiding from her past, she was choosing her future. In logistics, she found routine, repetition, predictability. Nothing burst through the door unexpectedly. No one screamed into her ear. There were no countdowns, no ticking clocks, just cargo, numbers, placement, stability, peace. And for 2 years, Ellie did the job perfectly. Better than anyone. But that didn't mean she forgot who she used to be. Every evening before lights out, she'd clean the M1911, not because she expected to use it, but because she refused to be unready if she ever needed to. And then one day she did. Now the others looked at her with new eyes. The joke stopped immediately. No more smirks when she insisted on recalculating load distributions. No more mocking when she checked each tie-down strap 3 times. No more teasing about her notebook. Now when Ellie spoke, people listened. She hadn't changed, but their understanding of her had. The aircraft crew that flew with her that day sent a request to base command. They wanted to place the M1911 in a display case inside the cargo hold, a small glass enclosure bolted to the wall beside the strap lockers. A brass plaque beneath it read, "One shot, one person," when it mattered most. A candid photo of Ellie, taken seconds after the emergency, circulated through the base. In it, she was adjusting her torn sleeve, a trail of blood running down her arm. Her expression was unreadable, but the power behind it couldn't be ignored. She refused every interview request, turned down every offer to return to special operations, declined promotions, medals, and commendation ceremonies. When her former commanding officer sent a secure message, offering her a classified position with triple pay, she sent back one sentence. "I don't act to be noticed or praised. I act so someone else gets to go home." And that was that. In military logistics circles, she became legend. New recruits learned her story, not from official training manuals, but from the veterans who had served long enough to know that sometimes the person standing quietly in the background is the one who might save your life. Not by shouting orders, but by understanding exactly what needs to be done and doing it. She never asked to be called a hero, never called herself one. In fact, if you asked her directly, she'd likely dismiss the entire story with a small shrug and a comment like, "Just doing my job." But the people who'd been on that plane knew better. They knew what courage looked like. It looked like a quiet woman kneeling in a freezing cargo hold, wind ripping past her, aiming a pistol into the sky. It looked like Ellie Ward. 6 months had passed. The events of that flight, the UAV attack, the single gunshot that saved 17 lives had become legend in military circles. Though officially buried beneath layers of classified documentation, the story spread like wildfire. Through whispered conversations and unconfirmed reports, new recruits arrived at base already knowing the tale of the quiet logistics sergeant who brought down a hostile drone with a pistol from the back of a transport plane. But Ellie Ward remained unchanged. Every morning she reported to the cargo bay like clockwork. Same clipboard, same sharp eyes, same unwavering attention to detail. To the untrained eye, she was just another NCO doing her duty. But for those who knew, even partially, who she really was, her presence carried weight. Nobody mocked her anymore. Her name was now spoken with reverence. Her habits, once seen as obsessive, were now recognized as the very practices that had saved them all. When she walked into the mess hall, people moved aside, not out of fear, but out of deep respect. Ellie, however, still took her meals in the same quiet corner, still kept her brown leather notebook, still avoided the spotlight. That pistol, her old one, was now mounted in a glass display inside the C-130's cargo hold. Every new flight crew read the inscription: one shot, one person.
When it mattered most.
But Ellie never paused to admire it. She never even looked in its direction. Her focus remained on the cargo, the straps, the numbers, the weight. Because if you asked her what her job was, she'd still say, making sure everyone makes it home. One morning, during a routine pre-flight inspection, a young airman approached her awkwardly. Sergeant Ward. My older brother was on that flight.
The one?
With the UAV. He never told me exactly what happened, but he said someone saved his life.
I just wanted to say thank you.
Ellie looked up from her checklist. She didn't smile much, but this time she did. Just a small one. Just doing my job, airman. The best way I know how. Word of her quiet reply made its way around base within hours. It became another piece of the legend. Not dramatic, not boastful. Just Ellie Ward being who she had always been. Calm, precise, humble. Command tried once more to bring her back into special operations. This time with a full promotion and a decorated position. The offer came with a personal visit from a 2-star general. Ellie politely declined. Again, I'm right where I need to be, sir. That was the last time they asked. Over time, Ellie's presence shaped the culture of her unit. Others began adopting her methods. Loadmasters started double-checking manifests more carefully. Pilots began listening when logistics personnel raised safety concerns. The entire operation tightened, refined, not by order, but by quiet influence. Because that's what Ellie Ward did. She didn't lead with rank or volume. She led by example. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the runway in orange and gold, Ellie stood alone near the tail of the aircraft. Her leather notebook rested in her hands, open to a new page. She didn't write about medals or missions. She wrote about cargo distributions, wind patterns, small fixes to safety harness placements, and beneath all the numbers and notes, in the smallest handwriting imaginable, she added a single sentence. Real strength is not in what you show. It's in what you choose to hold back. No one would ever read that line but her. And that's exactly how she wanted it.